Any delay on our end equals a delay on the closing end. And it usually, if we have a 1 day delay, ends up mean 2 to 3 day delay in the back end. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, we got Matt Jones. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Today is an exciting day for real estate. How are you doing?
This is an exciting day for real estate. Every day is an exciting day for real estate. Man, it's been a whirlwind over the last year and a half with everything, of course. Like, it's not just real estate. It's not like, oh, real estate investors, we've got this whirlwind. Nobody else does, obviously. But it's just been crazy. You just think about back prior to pandemic, then pandemic, and then leading up to now. And it's been a wild little ride here. It keeps you on your toes. There's always something. It's interesting. We talk about the pandemic because that's what's right in front of us. We quite frankly are kind of still in it, right? But it feels like it's winding down. So it feels like it's getting to be over, hopefully soon. Mm-hmm. It's been a wild ride all the time. There's never a dull moment if you're in this industry and you're trying to make waves and make things happen. Ever since I started, I started right during the Great Recession. Things were wild then, and there's just been so many. You get political changes, you get local influences. There's just so many different things that can affect your I guess your day-to-day and your perception and your planning and all that kind of stuff. I was just asked actually by an investor today. He said, what's your 5-year and 10-year plan? And it's like, well, I don't know. I do know kind of, right? I've got plans in place, but my plans are very open to being disrupted, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen in the economy. And I said, well, look, if the economy tanks and real estate goes down with it, I'm going to be buying like crazy. I'm going to be out there. My business is going to grow really rapidly. But if it stays status quo like it is today, my business is going to grow very, very slowly and methodically. And boy, there could be so many different scenarios within that could morph how my business grows and changes and what directions it goes. And all of a sudden, maybe we go, hey, we really don't like this asset class, or within even the asset class. So many different ways and different things that could happen. I have a plan, right? But the plan is open to be disrupted.
Yeah, great point. It's all about how you adjust and adapt to whatever the world and market conditions are presenting you. If you're sticking with the same plan, regardless of what's going on, you're going to be like Blockbuster and fade away.
Well, that's true. That's a great point though. Blockbuster just had their plan and they stuck to it. They didn't care about what was happening around them. They had their head so far down into the sand or so far up there that they couldn't see the skies above them. They couldn't see what was going on. And you look at some of the auto, like Ford and General Motors and that, they had the industry just completely surrounded, and they let all these other companies come in and completely disrupt the industry. And there's so many examples of that if you're not willing to adjust and just pivot and change and you're stuck with your goals so hard. People always harp on goals, and I love goals, but we also have to understand goals aren't set in stone. Goals are meant to be fluid and broken and changed and fixed and adjusted constantly. So we should always be looking at our goals. We should always be making them, but we should always be adjusting. If we're not adjusting our goals, we're not doing ourselves justice.
Yep. I look at my goals daily, and sometimes they vary from day to day, but generally they're my guiding principle to what I need to focus on at any given moment.
I write my goals down at the beginning of every year. And quite frankly, I should probably stop doing that. I should probably only write quarterly goals, because even right now it's June. It's June 1st. Hey, my goals today are a lot different than they were in December, late December, when I wrote those goals. They just are. I mean, there's definitely similarities, right? There's definitely a lot of things that are very, very similar, but there's some things that have changed and have adjusted. And, I'm a lot more excited about the senior care industry than I ever was. I wanted to buy a few properties in that, but I've totally changed my outlook in that. It just overall, my goals have shifted and adjusted, and actually gone with the market and what's working and what's not working with us.
So how do you know when it's time to change your goals?
I think it's really important just to really be uh, open to. I think it's important to just understand what's going on day to day, like what's working, what's not working, really reflect on that stuff. Are you spending some time every day to really journal, really think, meditate, whatever works for you? Are you talking with other industry leaders? Are you in a mastermind group? Like, what are you doing to engulf yourself in the industries that you're in? And just being open and receptive to thinking about, how could we change for the better, or how can we go deeper into what we're doing right now? So I just think it's just be open and honest with yourself, and understanding again that goals aren't set in stone. You're never going to lock them in, and if
Good
you
point.
are, you're going to be blockbuster. So, well, that's not even what we're talking about today. But one more thing I wanted to hit on. I told you right before we hit the record button. Um, I was gone up to one of my buddy's lake places that he just purchased, and he's building a cabin. And so we went up there, and my family and his family, and I helped him frame up the walls. And I had my phone that I just left alone. And so, Matt, you had booked a meeting with me to do a podcast, and I totally missed the meeting. And I apologize for that, by the way.
It's
But
all
I
good.
didn't look at my phone for 3 days. And I think that's valuable sometimes, just to completely shut it off and to get away from it all. And I don't know, it was great. I didn't miss it, didn't think about it. We were too busy, and if I wasn't helping him build, we're you know eating dinner, or hanging out, or whatever. So
That's all good. You probably didn't have any closing scheduled for Memorial Day.
no, nothing too important other than the call with you, which is very important. But we now we're talking now, so
Yeah, it's all good. All right. Well, like you mentioned, that wasn't even our topic for today.
not at all.
Sometimes we get sidetracked, but it's kind
So
of fun.
not sometimes, just all the time.
Fair enough. Well, so we're going to continue the multifamily series, and last week we talked about preparing for a webinar to be able to raise capital for your investment. But the next step that we're going to talk about now is preparing for close and closing. Like, what are the steps that you need to take to have a successful closing?
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, you did that webinar. You probably had that, you had that slide deck, you marketed to your investors, and now they start committing to your investment. And, depending on where you're at in your journey, maybe that goes quickly. Investors sign up. We have a portal. I think we maybe talked about that. Our portal syndication pro. Um, and so, the investors are going through the portal. We didn't call one investor. We just allowed them to come in, which is great. In the past, especially when I was starting, I would do the webinar, and then I would call every single prospective investor, or maybe not everyone, because someone would commit right away, but I was on the phone pretty consistently to try to raise that money. So that looks different for everybody, but have that phone call, with them, or email exchange or whatever. One thing I did is we did this raise, and we got it committed, and I sent an email, hey, congratulations, everything's locked up right now, and thanks for investing, blah blah blah. And then I sent another email update, and I sent that out for the last time, and I just basically gave them an update of what's going on, where we're at with the property, when they should expect to wire funds, kind of all their next steps, and then what are our next steps to get to close. So we did this raise. We're ready to go, and now we're getting to closing. So what are the steps you're going to need to take? Well, hopefully you've already engaged with a real estate broker, or sorry, not a real estate broker, a mortgage broker, or a bank, or some sort of lender. And if you haven't, you're way behind the eight ball. But hopefully you have. And now you're a big part of your work. Yeah, and we've already done due diligence, by the way. Because we've already talked about that, so we've done due diligence. Again, if you haven't, you're behind the eight ball. You better go do due diligence right now. And but your next kind of steps are to continue. I wouldn't call it due diligence, but to continue that process of making sure files are coming in as needed. And so we probably will have a few outstanding files. Then we have updated files that we'll need. So updated rent rolls, updated G12s, maybe updated contractor statements, depending on what's going on with the property, that type of stuff. Maybe tax statements. So we'll need that. And then it's a lot of communication with the lender. They're going to want us the appraisal, of course, so we got to coordinate that or help coordinate that. We've got environmental studies. We've got the survey that the lender is going to typically need. So, and then, they're going to ask for all kinds of documents. Maybe they need phone calls with you to help explain things. We had a phone call with our lender the other week. It was mostly with the lenders, their lawyer and our lawyer, talking about all the miscellaneous things we need, title company, all the miscellaneous things they need. So just a lot of making sure the pieces are being held together. You're not hands off during this time. It's not we sign the purchase agreement, we do our raise, and we just sit back and relax and watch everything happen. There's a lot of work leading up to this that we've got to really push. And we've got to make sure we're getting documentation in quickly. We've got to make sure we're answering questions quickly. We got to sign things. We just had an email. Hey, we need this signed. We need your signature on the operating statements and blah, blah, blah. And that you've looked over it and approve it. Okay. We got to get on that right away. Any delay on our end equals a delay on the closing end. And it usually, if we have a 1 day delay, ends up mean 2 to 3 day delay in the back end. So take your delay and multiply that by 2 to 3. That's what you're going to get. So make sure you get on it quickly and get things processed, because we want to get to closing on time if we can. That's really important.
Yeah, time is ticking. You've got a limited amount of time. Sometimes you can extend closing, but it's best not to. I know you've been doing this long enough that you kind of have everything in your head of like what to do and when to do it. But for a new person, would you recommend using a checklist of sorts of like, okay, here's when you do this thing and here's when you do that thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need to have a due diligence checklist for sure. Um, that's super vital to have a due diligence and closing checklist. All the steps we need to take. Now, the good thing is most lenders, if they're responsible and good, they're gonna have a checklist for you, right? What do you have to provide to them? So we had to provide bios, we had to provide all our taxes and financial statements and credit referrals, and all that kind of stuff. Most lenders have similar things, so hopefully you'll have it kind of packaged together. I have a Google Drive that all my documents sit in, and I update stuff as I need to, so I can just send that right to the lender. So again, be prepared for all that stuff, understand what they're going to ask for, But yeah, I mean, I've done it enough now to where I still have the checklist though. I go through that checklist every time, but for the most part, I've got it in my head and I know what I need. But prepare prior to, if you're looking at properties, make sure you understand when you do get this offer accepted, what are the next steps? What's the lender going to require? Because again, take if it takes me 3 days to get them something, that delays the closing minimum of 3 days, but potentially 6 days, potentially even longer, right? So I want to get them information immediately up front. That's why I have that Google Drive sitting there. That's why I update it frequently, is because I want to make sure they can say, hey, we need all this stuff. And I go, boom, here it is. And I don't have to spend 3 days finding it all.
And earlier you mentioned your portal. You use Syndication Pro, and I know there's other companies that have portals ready to be made. If somebody out there is really good at building websites that are going to be secure, you could make your own from scratch. But I kind of like that, portal in the box where it's going to be secure. It's going to have all the stuff that you need to be able to support your investors and manage like distributions and such. And Syndication Pro is a good one for that. Uh, what all is included with that portal?
Yeah. Boy, I don't know all of it because I'm sure there's more than I utilize, but they do ACH transactions you can push right through your portal. So first of all, your investors can go on there, they sign up, they create their account. Could be just prospective investors too. They get a welcome letter right up front. They get to view your current deals and your past deals, and so they can kind of see what's going on, and then they can click on the deal that you've got and push a button that says invest now. They can look at all your ppm and your slide deck and your webinar video and any other pictures and videos or anything else that you put on there, so they can see all the details of the deal, which is great. It's one spot. You don't have to. I used to send an email and then another email, and then we had attachments, and so easy for people to lose track of that. And now all they have to do is remember a password. And if they forget that, they can click, I forgot my password. They don't have to email me back and say, hey, I can't find that. I must have deleted it on accident. I can't find that file. Can you send me all the information again? And so very, very much hands off for you and a lot more automated. Allows all the e-sign too. So, our PPM, we've got a subscription agreement that goes with it. Investors can sign it right in there. And allows me to communicate right through the portal. So, and it emails to them, and it's always there though. They can go back to the portal and they can look. Then they can see what their distributions were through the portal. So it's always there, and they can track, oh, this is what's been going on. Last month I received this. This is what I received here and here and here and here. So they can always see what's happening with the property. They can always get the communication. If they miss an email and they're like, hey, you didn't email me last month, you can go, yeah, check the portal. It's right there. So it's, in my opinion, just super convenient, costs a little bit extra money, but you can't replace good communication. You just can't. There's no way.
Yep. So it's useful leading up to the closing as well as throughout the life of the property as well.
Yeah. I think it's so valuable. One of the things that happened, here's a lesson learned on my last deal. I communicated every single month with my investors. But what I would do is, I wasn't communicating. I started the investment not with the portal. I ended up adding the portal, adding that investment to the portal, but wasn't really utilizing it. And so when I was sending investor updates, I was going into my email and hit reply all. My investors were in a BCC, so they're not all in there. Yeah, everybody's privacy is still maintained. Well, send this BCC to my whole list and give them an update. Well, lo and behold, I find out from one investor's like, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't heard from you for like 6 to 8 months." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I've been emailing you every single month." "No, I haven't received any of your emails." So then I look at my email and I realize somehow, some way, my BCC list, some names got deleted. And I had
Hmm.
about 5 investors that weren't getting any of my emails for like 8 months in a row.
Oh no.
That would not happen if I was communicating directly through the portal. So again, just another reason communication is so valuable. Now, happily, those investors, were very understanding. You know, they trust me. So it wasn't big backlash, but I was embarrassed. And I was like, geez, how could I have let that happen? Like, but it just was automatically hitting, reply all, and didn't, I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And so those investors weren't getting communication.
So with doing it through the portal, and the investors can see like the whole history of
Yeah.
communication and
Yeah.
review it at their leisure.
Yeah. Way better. Way better. So yeah. Lot of stuff going on prior to closing. We want to make sure we're communicating with our contractor. Right now we're pre-ordering some stuff. We're getting things lined up, ready to go. We're making sure we're going to have all the permits pulled immediately. On this property, we did some environmental testing. So we wanted to test for lead and asbestos. We did that already. Um, Luckily found out that we don't have to do anything. So that's like a huge win for us. Um, we're communicating consistently with our property management company. They're working on hiring the right staff. When we close, we're going to hire new staff on this property. So we're working on them. How do we have the staff in place right away when we close versus waiting and having this odd time where the residents aren't being taken care of. So all those things are in the works, and you got to stay on top of it. And we have a weekly call with our property management company, and go through some of those steps that we're looking for, that we need to cover. Make sure that everything's moving in the right direction. So communicate with lender, communicate with property manager, communicate with contractors, communicate with investors. We're doing this every single week throughout, leading up to the day that we close.
Mhm.
So really, in my opinion, extremely valuable to make sure you're communicating with all these people, especially investors, but honestly, every one of them. Like we want this property to perform, and I feel like we end up getting started a lot sooner and have a big leg up when we communicate up front with them. We're setting expectations out right away, right from the get go, that this is how we do business. And I think investors really appreciate it. I think everyone really appreciates it. And I've mentioned this before, but when we get investors to commit to our deals, a lot of the other people are telling you, oh, you got to raise, 1.5 times greater than the amount you need. We need to raise 100% of what we need, and that's it. We don't get investors that back out. Matt, anybody that commits 50,000 is investing 50,000. They just are. Um, they don't back out. And sometimes they want to invest more. So we just don't get people that back out, and I think a lot of it is because of our communication prior to, our expectations during the webinar, and then our communication after.
You do allow for a waiting list of people, but
We
it
allow
seems
for a
like you don't.
waiting list, but we don't ever open it up because we don't need to. Nobody drops out. Yeah. So right now, I mean, we have a waiting list. We have quite a bit of a waiting list, but unfortunately, none of them will get in. Unfortunately, right? Fortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, they won't be able to get in.
But then they'll be even more ready for the next deal.
They'll be ready for the next deal. Yeah. Now, every once in a while, I think we've had it happen, but I can literally, I mean, it's less than, I mean, it's $100,000 exactly. I know, that's it. Two investors. So, but that's not important. I guess that I think the important part that people need to know is that you have to communicate. and you have to be on top of the ball. And the process doesn't start on the day of closing. The process starts on the day that you actually sign that purchase and sale agreement. That's when the process starts. And I think so many people think the process starts when they close on the property. And if you wait till we close that property, you're way behind already, and you're not doing anybody any justice.
That sounds like there's just so many moving pieces with this that if a general partner doesn't know what they're doing or isn't paying attention, that it's easy to miss some important key things.
That's why I think it's super valuable to have partners. And I think it's valuable to have the checklist. I think it's valuable to have that open communication because it is easy to miss things. Now, most things aren't going to completely blow up your deal and you can recover from them. But at the same time, let's just be professionals about it. We're trying to run and operate a business. Let's do it right from the get go. So this is not, it shouldn't overwhelm people. There's a lot of things, but it's not meant to overwhelm you. Um, it's meant to prepare you. Anybody can do this business, honestly. Like
Mhm.
anybody can do it. So it's not that it's so overwhelming. They're like, wow, you have to be really smart, really, really well prepared. No, you have to be really well prepared. You don't have to be really smart. I'm not the genius on the block, you know. So and I know plenty of other people that are not even close to being the genius on the block that do really well. So, um, once you close on the property, Matt, then the fun begins. Then you'll see the fruits of your labor start. So, if you've done your job up to that point, then the execution is a lot easier. You'll see, all that stuff kind of come together.
But what does a closing day look like?
Hopefully it's uneventful, but typically it's eventful. Typically there's a lot of emails back and forth within the last week of closing. It's constant bombardment of emails. It seems like things were missed somehow, some way, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So it's a mad scramble to the finish line. But eventually we all seem to get through it. You mentioned the extensions. I pre-write my PSA to allow for extensions just so the seller can't cancel. There's usually more earnest money due if we extend, but it does give us an extra little bit of a timeline. So, anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks, we typically give ourselves for an extension to allow for, these crazy things that happen to come up. Um, Depending on the deal and how quickly we said we were going to close, we might even do a couple extensions that we allow for. The the day of closing and thereafter, again, it's all about making sure your ducks are in a row, making sure that people are getting started and people are in the right places at the right time. So um, we have a really strong business plan that we share with our property management company, with our contractors, and so on. We should be able to execute that pretty rapidly. And your contractor and your property manager are going to have different business plans too.
Fair. Yeah, I think, if people here are new to syndication, don't try to do it on your own. You mentioned having partners before.
Yeah.
Partner with somebody who knows what the heck they're doing to help you get all this stuff organized. Otherwise, it can be certainly overwhelming.
Well, Matt, look, I mean, if you are doing syndication, you're taking other people's money and you are now responsible for their money. So if you want to take care of your investors' money properly, you need to be set up properly. And that probably means having the right team in place, or that does mean having the right team in place. That means having the right people in the right spots. It doesn't always mean you have to have a partner that takes 50% of the profits or 10% or whatever, or partners, but sometimes it does. You just have to make sure the right people are in the right spots. Because again, if you're taking other people's money, you better be doing it the right way. Right? If you're going to use your own money and that's it, well, I don't care about your own money if you burn through that. That's fine. Go ahead and be sloppy on your own dime. but don't be sloppy on somebody else's dime.
And like you said, anybody can do this business. It's not like the olden days where you had to be born into it or know somebody and get the handshake to be able to join the club. Uh, Anybody can start in real estate and learn how to do it and make connections to be able to build themselves up to large multifamily.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why it's now very, I would say, high priced, right? The way cap rates have been driven down is because, like you said, anybody can do this business now. It's not like the old days where it was a handshake deal or an insider deal, or nobody had access to it. Now there's a ton of education on this stuff. I mean, I'm doing a podcast right now. You and I are doing a podcast right now on this. There's just a ton of education. There's a ton of information out there, and which is definitely made it a lot more competitive. So good and bad, but I probably wouldn't have access. You probably wouldn't have access like we do if it wasn't like this.
Yep, exactly.
So. Well, cool, Matt. Anything else we want to talk about for leading up to closing?
No, I think that's it for today.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Well, hey, you have a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day Saturday.
Thanks. You too.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.